Fleet Commander Zor-Tak stood tall upon the bridge of the Galactic Dominion's flagship, Inevitable Conquest, his gaze fixed on the main view screen. The tiny sapphire sphere ahead swelled larger with every passing second. Earth, the locals called it, an almost laughably simple name for what would soon become yet another jewel in the crown of the mighty Arvaxian Empire. Status, Zor-Tak demanded, his 4 eyelids blinking one after another in an impatient ripple. All systems at peak efficiency, Commander, reported Lieutenant Dax. Conquest fleet in full formation. The humans' rudimentary detection systems have noted our presence. Global communication networks are destabilizing. Widespread panic is taking hold, exactly as anticipated. Zor-Tak's mandibles curved upward in the approximation of a smile. Excellent. And their defenses? Strategic Officer Pell R.A. stepped into the light of the console displays, her scaled skin shimmering in shifting hues of blue. As projected, Commander. Primarily atmospheric aircraft. Some orbital installations. Nuclear weaponry, but nothing capable of breaching our shielding. Crude technology, by our standards. How dull, Zor-Tak said, feigning a dramatic sigh. Does every civilization we meet collapse without resistance? I had hoped for at least the smallest challenge. The bridge crew answered with the practiced laughter of subordinates who knew better than to risk the commander's temper. Commander, interrupted Communications Officer Vex, an incoming transmission from the planet. How quaint, Zor-Tak said, straightening to his full, imposing height. Put it through. The screen shifted, revealing a human female with cropped auburn hair and striking green eyes. She wore a tailored military uniform adorned with insignia whose meanings were irrelevant to the Arvaxians. This is Admiral Amanda Taylor of the United Earth Defense Force, she said evenly. You have entered Earth's sovereign space without clearance. State your intentions immediately. Zor-Tak's laughter rattled through the bridge, a harsh, metallic sound that made several officers glance away. Adorable. The small mammals believe they possess sovereignty in this sector. He motioned for the channel to remain open. I am Fleet Commander Zor-Tak of the Arvaxian Empire, supreme authority in this galaxy. Your world has been chosen for assimilation into our glorious dominion. Prepare your leaders for surrender negotiations. Resistance will be unwise. Admiral Taylor's expression did not waver. We request a face-to-face meeting before any conclusions are reached. Our diplomatic team will meet yours at neutral coordinates. The commander's secondary heart nearly skipped a beat. Were they truly so oblivious? Very well, he said after a pause. Not because we must, but because I am curious. Your species' inflated self-importance amuses me. Coordinates appeared on the console as Taylor replied, We will arrive unarmed, as a gesture of good faith. We expect the same. The transmission cut. Is there any point to this charade, Commander? Asked General Drez, a grizzled veteran of countless planetary conquests. Absolutely, Zor-Tak said, his tone laced with amusement. Let's see what they think they can possibly offer. Shattering their hopes in person will be far more satisfying than reducing their cities to ash. Drez grunted. I'll assemble the delegation. The usual display. Yes. Dominance in presence, minimal weaponry, at least visibly. Let them cling to their illusions while we make our superiority obvious. The meeting point was a modest orbital outpost the humans called Unity Station. Primitive by Arvaxian engineering standards, yet functional enough. Through the viewport of the shuttle, Zor-Tak studied the structure with mild disdain. Scans show minimal defenses, reported Security Officer Mach. 6 humans aboard. Only small sidearms detected. As though such toys could harm us, Drez scoffed, adjusting the overlapping plates of his ceremonial armor. The polished metal caught Earth's reflected light, shimmering in green-blue flashes. The shuttle made contact with the station's docking ring, the jolt producing a sound that set Zor-Tak's sensory frills on edge. Human machinery lacked refinement. He addressed his 5 chosen officers. Remember, these are primitives, ignorant of their place in the galaxy. By the time we leave, they will understand. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and the Arvaxians stepped into the station's central chamber, a circular room dominated by a round table. 6 humans stood waiting, Admiral Taylor at the center. Up close, the species seemed even less formidable. Small, soft-bodied, with curious patches of fur on their heads and only 2 eyes each. How they had managed space travel at all was baffling. "Welcome to Unity Station," Taylor said, her tone steady. "We appreciate your willingness to meet." Zor-Tak ignored the pleasantry. "We'll dispense with formalities. Your planet will become part of our empire. The only matter worth discussing is how much suffering will accompany the transition." A tall human male with dark skin and closely cropped gray hair stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Marcus Powell, Chief Xenobiologist for Earth. Before politics, we'd like to learn more about your kind. This is our first contact with an intelligent species beyond our own." "How fortunate for you," Drez said, his voice like grinding steel, "that it was us you encountered and not something worse. The galaxy is not kind to the weak." "So you see us as weak?" asked another human, a woman with distinct East Asian features. According to the Arvaxian briefing data, her name was Dr. Lee. "There's no other conclusion," Zor-Tak said, allowing himself a smirk. "Our intelligence on your species is thorough. We know your capabilities, and your limitations." Taylor's eyes narrowed, but her voice stayed calm. "Then you also know we are peaceful, but not defenseless. We would prefer cooperation over subjugation." Drez laughed outright, the metallic scrape echoing in the chamber. "Cooperation, between a master and its servant, perhaps." The humans exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Zor-Tak watched with a faint sense of satisfaction as the humans shifted uneasily under his gaze. "Perhaps we should speak of terms," suggested a copper-skinned woman seated beside Admiral Taylor. "I'm Representative Diaz, speaking on behalf of Earth's unified government." "The terms are simple," Zor-Tak replied, pacing slowly around the circular table like a predator circling prey. "Your planet will supply the Empire with resources and labor. In return, you will receive our protection, and the honor of becoming part of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy." "And if we decline?" Admiral Taylor's voice was level, almost defiant. Zor-Tak halted, fixing all 4 eyes squarely on her. "Declining is not a choice you are permitted." "There are always choices," she answered evenly. Something in her tone caught his attention. There was confidence there, far too much for someone in her position. "Commander," came Security Officer Mock's low voice, urgent and tense. "Unusual energy readings detected, originating within this station." Before Zor-Tak could question further, Admiral Taylor spoke again. "While you were closing in on our planet, we took the liberty of examining your flagship systems. Impressive work, I'll grant you, but hardly beyond comprehension." General Drez stepped forward, his armored frame casting long shadows. "You dared to spy on an Imperial vessel?" Taylor's reply was calm and cold. "We dare much more than that, General. We've been monitoring your fleet since you first entered our solar system, 3 days ago." Zor-Tak felt the scales along his spine contract in a rare instinctive reaction, the Arvaxian equivalent of a chill. "Impossible," he stated flatly. "Their sensors had detected no pursuit craft, no probes." "Your stealth systems have blind angles," explained Dr. Powell from across the table. "Once we identified them, keeping track of your movements was not difficult." This meeting was drifting far from the script Zor-Tak had envisioned. These humans were supposed to be pleading for their lives, not standing toe-to-toe in defiance. "Enough of this," General Drez growled, his voice like grinding steel. "You will bow before the Empire or be eradicated. Those are the only paths open to you." Taylor stepped closer, unflinching, her eyes locking with Drez. "Then you kneel first," she said quietly, yet the weight of the challenge was unmistakable. The silence that followed was heavy enough to press against the walls. Even the other humans seemed momentarily stunned by her audacity. "You insignificant creature," Drez snarled, every word venom. "You dare defy the might of the Arvaxian Empire?" "We do," Taylor said without hesitation. "And we came prepared." She touched a small device on her wrist. Instantly, the wall-mounted view screen lit up, displaying the Arvaxian fleet hanging above Earth. Zor-Tak's jaw tightened as dozens of small, previously unseen objects shimmered into visibility alongside each of his capital ship. "What is this?" he demanded. "Shall we call it a demonstration?" Taylor replied. "We name them Nova Mines, neutron oscillation vaporization arrays, completely invisible until armed. Each one can annihilate your largest vessel in a single detonation." "You bluff," Zor-Tak said, though his voice no longer carried complete certainty. Taylor's lips curved faintly. "Shall we find out?" A subtle gesture from her wrist device, and one mine flared with a sudden blue glow before detonating. The blast was precise, not a chaotic eruption. Its energy neatly severed a smaller Arvaxian ship's propulsion module from the main hull. The crippled vessel drifted helplessly. That, Dr. Powell explained evenly, was at minimum power. "No casualties. But your warship is now dead in space." Zor-Tak's thoughts raced. How had they developed such devices? Their intelligence reports had been disastrously wrong. "You've just declared war," Drez spat. Representative Diaz leaned forward slightly. "It doesn't have to be war. We can defend ourselves, but we would rather choose peace." Zor-Tak gestured sharply toward the drifting image on the screen. "You call this peace? You entered our system announcing your intent to conquer us," Taylor countered without raising her voice. "This is merely proof that we are not as vulnerable as you believed." The commander's anger seethed beneath the surface, battling with the cold precision of his tactical instincts. If these mines were genuine, his entire armada was one wrong move away from destruction. "What is it you want?" he asked at last, his mandibles tight. "An honest negotiation," Taylor said. "On equal terms, not as predator and prey." He flicked a glance toward Drez, whose every line of posture screamed for battle. The general would gladly sacrifice every ship rather than bend to a lesser species. But Zor-Tak had not risen to command by letting pride dictate strategy. "You have my attention," he said, the words tasting bitter. "Good," Taylor answered. "First, your fleet will fall back to a holding position near Jupiter. The damaged ship will be permitted to dock here for repairs." "You expect us to retreat on the basis of one lucky strike?" Drez cut in. "That wasn't luck," Taylor said, her tone sharpening. "That was precision. And only a glimpse of our full capability." She tapped her wrist again. The image shifted to show the moon's surface. What had seemed like harmless craters suddenly ignited with an eerie blue light, revealing hundreds of hidden emplacements. "This," she explained, "is our lunar defense network. Every weapon here is already locked on your fleet. We could have fired the instant you crossed into our system, but we prefer resolving conflict through dialogue, when possible." Zor-Tak's mind churned. If they had managed to hide such a defense system in plain sight, what else might they have concealed? "Commander," Lieutenant Dax whispered from behind. "Our long-range arrays are detecting hundreds of energy signatures entering from the outer system." The situation was unraveling fast. This was supposed to be a swift, clean conquest, yet the ground was shifting beneath him with every passing second. "These are your fleet's withdrawal coordinates," Dr. Powell said, transmitting the data directly to the Arvaxian consoles. "Once positioned there, we can discuss real diplomacy." "And if we decline?" Drez demanded. Taylor's expression was unreadable. "Then we'll have no choice but to show you exactly what our defenses can do," Admiral Taylor said. Her tone was calm, but the weight of the threat hung thick in the air. "I promise, Commander, you would not enjoy the experience." The words lingered between them like an unignited fuse. Zor-Tak had commanded dozens of planetary conquests without ever once ordering a retreat. Such a thing would be a deep wound to his reputation, perhaps irreparable. Yet the alternative could be the destruction of his entire fleet. "You've concealed your true nature from the galaxy," he accused. "Not concealed," Taylor corrected. "We simply chose not to announce ourselves until the moment was right. Today was never meant to be first contact, Commander. We've been watching, observing galactic powers, for decades." The admission struck like a blow to the chest. For decades, humanity had been quietly studying the very powers that considered themselves the masters of the stars. Finally, Zor-Tak forced out the words, tasting bile in his mouth. "I will pull my fleet back to the coordinates you've provided. But know this, Admiral." His mandibles twitched with suppressed fury. "The Empire does not forgive insults. This is not finished." "I would expect nothing less," Taylor said smoothly. "But next time, perhaps approach us as potential allies rather than would-be subjects. You might be surprised what humanity offers as friends." As the Arvaxian delegation turned to depart, General Drez moved in close, his voice low and edged. "You can't seriously intend to withdraw." "For now, there's no alternative," Zor-Tak murmured back. "But as we retreat, I want full scans of their defenses. Every reading, every fluctuation. Find their vulnerabilities. This is nothing more than a tactical pause." Drez said nothing, but the tension in his posture betrayed barely contained rage. At the threshold, Zor-Tak looked back to Taylor. "You have surprised us today, human. That is rare." "Get used to it, Commander," she replied with a faint, knowing smile. "Surprising others is something of a human specialty." The shuttle disengaged from the station. Through the viewport, the small blue planet hung below, serene and deceptively harmless. Zor-Tak regarded it in silence. Such a modest world to have birthed such a dangerous species. He would not underestimate them again. 3 standard cycles later, the humiliation still gnawed at him. Zor-Tak paced the bridge of the inevitable Conquest, claws tapping sharply against the deck plating. Beyond the forward viewports, Jupiter's vast storms churned, chaotic and unrelenting, a mirror to his thoughts. "Status of the repair detail?" he demanded. Lieutenant Dax checked his console. "Human technicians continue working on the relentless Fong. Their efficiency surpasses even our engineering projections. Estimated completion, 2 cycles. And our scans of their defensive systems?" Strategic Officer Pell R.A. stepped forward, her expression tight. "Commander, our most advanced sensors cannot break through their stealth field. We've mapped only 38% of their lunar armament. Any attempt to scan Earth directly is met with active interference." Zor-Tak's fist slammed down on the nearest console, the impact leaving a jagged crack. "Unacceptable! How can a species that only left its atmosphere a century ago possess countermeasures that defy the Empire's best arrays?" The silence that followed was heavy. No one dared voice the obvious. They had grossly underestimated humanity. "Commander," Communications Officer Vex said cautiously, "incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral Taylor requests your presence for continued negotiations on their surface." Drez, standing by the tactical holomap, gave a harsh, humorless laugh. "A trap. They want to lure you in, cut off the head of our fleet." "Perhaps," Zor-Tak mused, eyes narrowing. "Or perhaps it's the chance to learn what we couldn't from orbit." "You can't possibly," Drez began. "I'm not considering it," Zor-Tak interrupted coldly. "I'm going. And you, General, will be at my side." Drez's scales flushed dark purple, the Arvaxian sign of outrage. "Commander, I must formally. Your objection is noted and overruled. Prepare a shuttle. Minimal escort. We leave in 1 hour." The general left stiff-backed and bristling. Dax stepped closer. "Permission to speak freely?" "Briefly. The general fears for your safety, yes, but there's more. The Imperial Council has sent 3 high-priority messages. They want reports of conquest, not talks. A slow pulse of Zor-Tak's secondary heart betrayed his tension. Council disappointment could mean more than demotion, it could mean ruin. Then we must see these talks yield something they can present as a victory. One way or another. The shuttle's descent through the thick blue atmosphere was rougher than anticipated, but the view was striking. Vast oceans glinted like liquid sapphire, continents spread in deep greens, clouds coiled in pure white swirls. Zor-Tak had crushed worlds before, but even he could not deny this one's elegance. Primitive, yet strangely captivating, he murmured. A gilded cage is still a cage, Drez muttered beside him, for the 5th time checking his concealed weapons. Enough, Zor-Tak ordered. We are here to watch, to learn, and to find their weaknesses. The shuttle came in low over a sprawling coastal city, its skyline bristling with human architecture. They landed atop a massive central structure, the pad ringed with armed soldiers. The weapons were displayed openly, not aimed but unmistakably ready. A calculated show of controlled power. Admiral Taylor waited with a smaller delegation, posture relaxed but eyes alert. "Welcome to New York, Commander Zor-Tak," she said as the shuttle's ramp lowered. "I trust the journey was satisfactory?" "Adequate," he answered curtly. His gaze swept the cityscape. "Meeting on your homeworld is bold. Are you not concerned our presence will provoke unrest?" Taylor's enigmatic smile returned. "Your arrival has been public knowledge for some time. Our people have been prepared for the day they'd meet another species." She paused just slightly. "They also know exactly why you're here. They're aware we're in discussions with the Arvaxian Empire," Representative Diaz answered crisply, stepping forward. "The finer details remain classified for now." Zor-Tak noticed the subtle brilliance in their choice of words, how they had reshaped the narrative for their own people. Not potential victims, but equals sitting at a negotiation table with the Empire. Psychological maneuvering at its finest. "This way," Admiral Taylor said, motioning toward a grand entrance. "The Council of Nations is waiting." The building they entered was monumental by human standards. Vaulted ceilings, polished stone floors, vast windows spilling daylight across the space. They were led into a circular hall where 24 humans sat at a sweeping, curved table. Their clothing varied in style and cut, signaling the mix of Earth's many cultures, proof that despite their so-called unified government, diversity remained a defining trait. "Distinguished representatives of Earth's nations," Taylor announced. "And joining us virtually, the leaders of our off-world colonies." The word colonies snapped Zor-Tak's attention into razor focus. "Colonies?" he asked sharply. "Indeed," replied a silver-haired man whose image shimmered slightly, indicating remote projection. "Venus, Titan, Europa, and 3 settlements outside this system. I'm President Garcia of the Mars Confederation, speaking via quantum link." Zor-Tak exchanged a quick, uneasy glance with General Drez. Their intelligence reports had suggested only a token human presence on Mars. No mention at all of other colonies. "Our data indicated your species had barely achieved basic space travel," Zor-Tak said, fighting to keep his voice neutral. A low ripple of laughter passed through the chamber. "That assumption," Dr. Powell said as he entered alongside Dr. Lee, "is one we've been quite content to let others make." Taylor gestured to the chamber's centerpiece, a low, circular device. It flared to life, projecting a luminous 3-dimensional star map. "Humanity reached faster-than-light capability 73 years ago," she said. "We've been moving quietly ever since." The projection widened, revealing dozens of marked star systems and faintly traced routes. Zor-Tak's stomach nodded. These weren't mere exploration paths. These were long-standing networks, hidden entirely from the Empire's awareness. "This cannot be," he said flatly. "The Empire monitors all FTL traffic in this sector. We would have detected you." "Not if you aren't using standard drive physics," Dr. Lee answered. "Our quantum fold propulsion leaves no subspace wake." We move between space, rather than through it. Zortak felt the room closing in around him. Such a technology meant they could slip past Imperial detection at will. The strategic consequences were staggering. "Why tell us this?" he asked, forcing his tone into something approaching calm. "Why not simply destroy my fleet the moment we arrived?" "Because we are not conquerors," Taylor replied without hesitation. "We've watched the galaxy's great powers. The way your empire operates, the Grelvan hierarchy, the Tauric dominion. All built on conquest and subjugation." "It is the natural order," Dres interrupted sharply. "The strong rule. The weak serve." "Perhaps," Garcia's flickering projection said, "but humanity has a long tradition of the weak overturning the so-called natural order." Taylor nodded toward Dr. Powell, who activated a second hologram. This one played scenes of ancient battles: Thermopylae, Agincourt, Yorktown. Time and again, smaller forces have bested greater ones through ingenuity, persistence, and strategy. Diaz picked up the thread. "We stayed hidden while we studied the galaxy, and prepared. Your arrival forced our hands sooner than we'd planned, but we were ready." Zortak's tactical instincts ran hot, evaluating every detail. They spoke of peace, yet maintained colonies. "Settlements on uninhabited worlds?" he pressed. "We have a strict policy of non-interference with developing species," Taylor clarified. Dres let out a humorless laugh. "How noble! And what is it you want from us? That we step aside while you continue your quiet expansion? That we pretend we never learned your secret?" The chamber's atmosphere shifted as a new figure entered, an older woman with steel-blue eyes and a presence that commanded attention without a word. Taylor straightened subtly. "Commander Zortak, General Dres," she said, "allow me to introduce Director Eliza Frost of the Terran Intelligence Directorate." Frost walked directly up to Zortak, stopping close enough to look him straight in all four eyes, utterly unfazed by his height or armored presence. "We've studied the Arvaxian Empire for a long time," she said evenly. "Your strengths, your weaknesses, your enemies." "We have no weaknesses," Dres snapped, his voice almost a snarl. "Your reliance on resources from the Tholian sector will reach a critical point in 15 years, Frost said without missing a beat. "The Grelvan hierarchy knows this. Their fleet movements over the past 3 years indicate preparation for a major incursion." The commander's hearts thudded once hard. That intelligence was tightly restricted within the Empire. How in the galaxy did humans have it? "Your eastern frontier is stretched thin," Frost continued. "Rebellions on Pax 9 and Doros Prime have locked down 3 battle groups. And the Tauric Dominion has increased antimatter production by 300% in 12 months. They are preparing for something." Zortak's mandibles tightened. "What is your point, human?" "The Empire is facing existential threats on multiple fronts," Frost said, tone flat, factual. "You may not survive without allies. We're offering to be those allies." Suspicion sharpened Dres' voice. "In exchange for?" "Recognition of human sovereignty," Taylor answered. "Mutual non-aggression. Trade. Cultural exchange. The usual diplomatic terms. And mutual defense against common enemies," Taylor added. Zortak's mind churned through scenario after scenario. If the human's intelligence was as precise as it appeared, and every instinct told him it was, the strategic payoff of such an alliance could be extraordinary. Their technology alone, if real, was a game-changer. The Imperial Council would never accept a partnership with a people they intended to conquer, he said, watching their faces closely. "The Council doesn't need to know everything right away," Director Frost countered. "You can report that Earth requires more resources to pacify than anticipated, and that you're establishing a foothold while assessing our defenses. Meanwhile, we quietly coordinate against the Grelvans." Zortak regarded her with a flicker of respect. This level of political subtlety would fit perfectly in the Imperial court. "You've thought this through." "We've had decades to prepare," Taylor said. We knew first contact would come eventually. We made sure it would be on our terms. Dres stepped closer, his tone sharp with outrage. Commander, you can't seriously entertain this heresy. They should be serving the Empire, not sharing its table. All noted, General and limited, Zor-Tak said evenly. You see only the glory of conquest, not the wider game. Turning back to the humans, he added, I will need proof. Your claims on Grelvan and Tauric movements, and a live demonstration of this quantum fold drive. Easily done, Frost replied. We have observation outposts near critical Grelvan military zones. The data is yours to review. A thick pause hung over the chamber as Zor-Tak weighed the heresy against the potential gain. Everything in his upbringing and training screamed that this was wrong, that the strong ruled and the weak submitted. But strategy whispered something else. I propose a temporary accord, he said at last. Limited cooperation against shared threat. Technology exchange in civilian sectors. If results are promising, we'll expand the terms. Taylor stepped forward and offered her hand, a gesture he'd been briefed on. Agreed. Shall we start with joint surveillance of Grelvan fleet patterns in the Tholian sector? Dres made a disgusted noise but held his tongue as Zor-Tak clasped the small, five-fingered hand. The Council will demand answers, Dres muttered while humans began preparing data transfers. They'll receive a version that serves the Empire, Zor-Tak replied. If this works, they'll approve. If not, his mandibles clicked in dismissal. And if they betray us? Zor-Tak watched Taylor speaking to her people, confident but without arrogance. Then they'll learn why the Arvaxian Empire has endured 10,000 years. But I think they already know. 6 standard months later, Zor-Tak stood on the observation deck of the newly completed joint Arvaxian human station, suspended high above Jupiter. The gas giant swirled below in bands of bronze and gold, hiding both fleets from easy detection while serving as a rich source of extracted resources. The quantum fold sensors just picked up Grelvan scouts on the Tholian sector's edge, Taylor reported as she joined him at the viewport. Exactly where your analysis said they'd appear. And our strike groups? On standby, she confirmed. Stealth carriers are already in position. He nodded, his satisfaction clear. The months had proven his gamble wise. Human technology, paired with Arvaxian discipline and combat doctrine, was formidable. Their first joint mission, a quiet capture of a Grelvan intelligence vessel, had gone flawlessly, yielding critical information. The Imperial Council has now granted Earth the status of a protected autonomous region within the Empire's sphere, Zor-Tak told her. Not the full alliance you wanted, but a considerable step. Taylor's smile was wry. Politics is the art of getting there 1 inch at a time, Commander. We'll keep moving forward. He studied her for a moment. You never intended to destroy my fleet that first day, did you? Not truly. We prefer allies to corpses, she said simply. But we were ready to do what was necessary. A philosophy the Empire could stand to learn, Zor-Tak admitted. Especially with the Grelvans stirring. An alert chimed. Both turned toward the tactical display, where a fresh cluster of red markers flashed into existence along the Tholian border. They've decided to move sooner than we expected, Taylor observed. Then let's show them the strength of our new partnership, Zor-Tak said, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. Deploy the joint fleet. Orders rippled through the station. Human and Arvaxian crews moved in perfect sync, ships aligning for simultaneous quantum fold jump. Zor-Tak allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He had come to this world expecting another effortless subjugation. Instead, he had found something far more valuable, an ally capable of shifting the balance of power across the galaxy. The Grelvans, confident they faced only the stretched forces of the Arvaxian Empire, had no idea what awaited them. Soon they would. And they would learn, as Zor-Tak had, that underestimating humans was a mistake with lethal consequences. You know, Taylor said as their fleets formed up, when you first arrived, your general said we'd kneel. You told him to kneel first. I remember, Zor-Tax said. A bold line from a lesser species. Her eyes glinted with amusement. Not bold, just certain. Humans don't kneel easily. But we make excellent partners. Zor-Tax's gaze stayed fixed on the tactical board as the first human Arvaxian battle group vanished into folded space. So it seems, he said. So it seems.